The morning sun cast long shadows across the rugged mountains of Afghanistan as Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison adjusted his binoculars. His team of 8 Navy SEALs had been tracking a high-value target for 3 days through the unforgiving terrain. The intelligence reports were clear. Ahmad Nazir, a notorious Taliban commander responsible for multiple attacks on coalition forces, was hiding in a remote village nestled between 2 mountain peaks. Morrison's team, call sign Razor Squad, had earned their reputation through countless successful missions. Each member was handpicked for their unique skills. Staff Sergeant Carlos Martinez served as the team's medic and explosives expert. Petty Officer First Class Derek Thompson was their communications specialist. The youngest member, Petty Officer Second Class Ryan Walsh, had proven himself as an exceptional marksman, despite being only 23 years old. The village below looked peaceful in the early morning light. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and children could be seen playing in the dusty streets. But Morrison knew better than to trust appearances in this part of the world. His years of experience had taught him that danger often wore the mask of innocence. Razor 1, to all units, Morrison whispered into his radio. Target building confirmed at grid reference 4728. Intel suggests Nazir is in the compound with minimal security. We move in 20 minutes. The team had spent the previous night studying the village layout. The target compound sat at the village's edge, a 2-story stone building with thick walls and a flat roof. Traditional Afghan architecture made it both a fortress and a potential trap. Multiple escape routes existed through narrow alleyways that connected to the surrounding mountains. As the team prepared for their approach, Martinez checked their medical supplies one final time. In hostile territory, every piece of equipment could mean the difference between life and death. His hands moved efficiently through bandages, morphine injectors, and emergency surgical tools. The weight of responsibility for his teammates' lives never left his shoulders. Thompson worked on establishing communication protocols with their command base, located 60 miles away at Forward Operating Base Phoenix. The mountainous terrain made radio communication challenging, requiring precise positioning of antennas and careful frequency selection to avoid detection by enemy forces who monitored coalition transmissions. The plan was straightforward but required perfect execution. Morrison would lead the primary assault team through the compound's main entrance. Martinez and 2 others would secure the rear exit. Thompson would maintain overwatch from a position 300 meters away, providing both communication relay and covering fire if needed. As they began their descent toward the village, each SEAL moved with practiced silence. Years of training had made them experts at navigating difficult terrain without detection. They used natural cover provided by rocks and vegetation, timing their movements to avoid exposing themselves on open ground. The village remained quiet as they approached. Too quiet, Morrison thought. His instincts, honed by multiple deployments, began sending warning signals. Something felt wrong about the entire situation. The intelligence had been too clean, the target location too convenient. In his experience, high-value targets like Nazir didn't make themselves easy to find. Walsh, positioned as the team's rear guard, noticed movement in the hills above the village. Through his scope, he could see figures moving between rock formations. They weren't local farmers or herders. These men carried weapons and moved with military precision. His heart rate increased as he realized they might be walking into an ambush. Razor 1, this is Razor 7, Walsh whispered urgently into his radio. I've got armed personnel in the hills above our position. Count at least 12, possibly more. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. The mission parameters had indicated minimal enemy presence. Either their intelligence was wrong, or they were being led into a trap. He had to make a critical decision: abort the mission and risk losing their target, or continue forward with increased caution. The compound was now only 200 meters away. Through his binoculars, Morrison could see guards posted at strategic positions around the building. These weren't farmers with old rifles. They carried modern AK-47 assault rifles and wore tactical vests. This was clearly a prepared defensive position. All units, switch to Plan Bravo, Morrison commanded. Plan Bravo meant they would approach with maximum caution, assuming heavy enemy presence. It also meant their extraction timeline would be significantly compressed. They would have to move fast once the shooting started. Martinez positioned himself behind a large boulder that provided cover from multiple angles. His explosive charges were ready, but he hoped they wouldn't be needed in a populated area. Civilian casualties were always a primary concern in these operations. The rules of engagement required absolute certainty before using lethal force. As the team moved into their final positions, Thompson established communication with Base Command. Phoenix Base, this is Razor Squad. We are in position for target acquisition. Be advised, enemy presence appears heavier than intelligence indicated. The response crackled through his earpiece. Razor Squad, you are cleared to proceed. Extraction helicopter will be on standby at Checkpoint Alpha. Mission priority remains high. Morrison knew there was no turning back now. Too much depended on capturing or eliminating Nazir. The intelligence suggested he was planning a major attack on coalition forces, possibly targeting a school where American personnel were training Afghan teachers. The stakes were too high to abort based on increased risk alone. The final approach began at dawn. Each SEAL moved into position with practiced precision. Morrison's heart pounded as he prepared to give the signal to begin the assault. Years of training and experience had brought them to this moment. They were the best at what they did, but even the best could face situations beyond their control. In the hills above, hidden eyes watched their every move. Unknown to Morrison and his team, they were indeed walking into a carefully planned trap. Ahmad Nazir had been expecting them. The intelligence that led them to this village had been deliberately leaked, designed to draw elite American forces into a killing ground where superior numbers and prepared positions would negate their tactical advantages. The morning sun climbed higher and the time for action had arrived. Morrison raised his hand, preparing to signal the assault. In moments, the peaceful Afghan village would erupt into chaos, and the fate of Razor Squad would hang in the balance. None of them knew that their survival would soon depend on someone they had never met. Someone watching from an impossible distance with skills that defied belief. The assault began at precisely 06:47 hours. Morrison's team moved like shadows through the morning mist, their movements coordinated through years of training and combat experience. The first phase went exactly according to plan. They reached the compound walls without detection, and Martinez quickly placed his breaching charges on the main entrance. The explosion shattered the morning silence. Chunks of stone and wood flew through the air as the ancient door disintegrated. Morrison led his team through the breach, their weapons ready and eyes scanning for targets. The interior of the compound was darker than expected, with narrow corridors leading in multiple directions. "Clear left," called Martinez as he swept his assigned sector. The ground floor appeared empty, but Morrison's instincts told him they were being watched. The silence was too complete, too artificial. Where were the guards they had observed from their overwatch position? Thompson, positioned on a rocky outcrop 300 meters away, maintained constant communication with the assault team. Through his powerful scope, he watched the compound for any sign of enemy movement. His radio crackled with updates from each team member as they methodically cleared room after room. "Razor Squad, this is Phoenix Base," came the voice from their command center. "Satellite imagery shows increased vehicle movement on roads leading to your location. You may have limited time before enemy reinforcements arrive." The warning sent a chill through Morrison's spine. They needed to find Nazir quickly and extract before the situation became impossible. He pushed his team harder, knowing that every minute increased their danger exponentially. On the second floor, Walsh discovered evidence of recent occupation. Prayer rugs were still warm, and tea glasses sat half empty on a low table. Someone had been here moments before their arrival. The intelligence was accurate about the location, but their target seemed to have vanished like smoke. That's when the trap was sprung. The first shots came from the hills above the village, exactly where Walsh had spotted movement earlier. High-powered, rifle rounds began impacting the compound walls, sending stone fragments flying like shrapnel. The SEALs immediately took cover, but they were caught in an expertly designed kill zone. "Contact, contact!" Morrison shouted into his radio. We're taking heavy fire from multiple positions in the surrounding hills. Request immediate air support. More gunfire erupted from positions within the village itself. Windows and doorways, that had appeared empty, suddenly blazed with muzzle flashes. The entire population seemed to have been replaced by armed fighters, all converging on the trapped SEALs. Martinez realized they had walked into a carefully planned ambush. The compound was designed to funnel them into a predetermined killing ground where enemy fighters could attack from superior positions. The stone walls that should have provided protection instead became a prison. "We need to move now," Martinez yelled over the increasing gunfire. "They've got us surrounded." Thompson, from his overwatch position, found himself under attack as, well, enemy fighters had somehow positioned themselves behind his location, cutting off his escape route. He was forced to abandon his communication equipment and fight for his own survival, with just his sidearm and limited ammunition. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Walsh took a bullet through his left shoulder while trying to reach a window position. The impact spun him around and sent him crashing into a wall. Martinez immediately moved to provide medical aid, but enemy fire was too intense to allow proper treatment. "I'm okay," Walsh gasped, though blood was spreading across his tactical vest. "Just keep moving, we can't stay here." Morrison's mind raced through their options. The main entrance was covered by at least 3 machine gun positions. The rear exit was blocked by enemy fighters who had positioned themselves in the alleyways. Windows provided no escape route due to the compound's elevation and the drop to the street below. Their radio communications with Base Command became increasingly desperate. "Phoenix Base, this is Razor 1. We are pinned down with 1 casualty. Enemy strength much greater than intelligence indicated. We need immediate extraction support." The response was not what they wanted to hear. "Razor 1, nearest air support, is 20 minutes out. Weather conditions are preventing helicopter extraction at this time. You need to fight your way to Checkpoint Alpha." 20 minutes might as well have been 20 hours. At their current rate of ammunition consumption, they would be defenseless long before help arrived. Each SEAL carried enough ammunition for a standard engagement, but this had become a prolonged firefight against overwhelming odds. The enemy seemed to have unlimited ammunition and reinforcements. Every time the SEALs eliminated 1 position, 2 more would open fire from different locations. It was becoming clear that this entire operation had been planned to capture or kill American Special Forces personnel. Martinez used his remaining explosive charges to create a hole in the compound's rear wall, hoping to provide an alternative escape route. The explosion was successful, but enemy fighters immediately moved to cover the new opening with heavy gunfire. Walsh, despite his wound, continued to engage enemy positions with his rifle. His marksmanship skills were exceptional, and several enemy fighters fell to his precisely placed shots. But for every enemy he eliminated, more seemed to appear from the surrounding buildings and hills. "Ammunition check," Morrison called out. The responses were not encouraging. Most team members were down to their last magazines. They had been in continuous combat for over 30 minutes, and their supplies were nearly exhausted. The psychological pressure was as dangerous as the physical threat. Being trapped with limited ammunition against overwhelming odds tested even the most experienced warriors. Each SEAL drew on years of training and combat experience to maintain discipline and effectiveness under extreme stress. Thompson managed to regain contact with the team through a backup radio, but his position remained precarious. Enemy fighters were closing in on his location, and he would soon be forced to abandon his overwatch position entirely. That's when Morrison made the decision that would determine their fate. They couldn't wait for air support that might not arrive in time. They couldn't fight their way through overwhelming enemy numbers with limited ammunition. Their only chance was to call for help using their emergency beacon and hope someone was listening. Morrison activated their emergency distress signal, a high-frequency transmission that would alert any coalition forces in the area to their desperate situation. The signal would also reveal their exact location to enemy forces monitoring coalition frequencies, but they had no other choice. The distress signal went out across the mountainous terrain, a desperate plea for help from some of America's most elite warriors. Unknown to Morrison and his team, The signal was indeed received by someone listening in the vast wilderness, someone with skills that existed in the realm of legend, someone who had been tracking the same enemy forces for very different reasons. High, above the battlefield in a position that seemed impossible for any human to occupy, eyes watched the developing tragedy through a scope that could see details invisible to normal vision. A finger rested lightly on a trigger, and calculations were being made that would soon turn the tide of battle in ways no one could imagine. 3 miles away on a mountain peak that most people would consider impossible to reach, Master Sergeant Elena Vasquez heard the distress signal through her specialized radio equipment. She had been tracking the same Taliban network for 6 months, operating alone under classified orders that few people in the military even knew existed. Elena was not like other soldiers. She belonged to an ultra-secret unit known only as Ghost Protocol. Specialists who worked completely alone, often for months at a time in some of the world's most dangerous locations. Her mission parameters were simple: eliminate high-value targets using methods that left no trace of American involvement. At 32 years old, Elena had already become a legend within special operations circles. Her confirmed kills numbered in the triple digits, but more importantly, she had never failed to complete a mission or lost a single friendly life under her protection. Her skills with a rifle were considered supernatural by those who had witnessed them. The distress signal crackled through her earpiece with desperate urgency. She quickly identified the frequency and location. A Navy SEAL team was trapped just 3 miles from her current position. Through her high-powered scope, Elena could see the entire battlefield laid out below her like a deadly chess game. Her current position was perfect for long-range engagement. The mountain peak provided an elevated firing position with clear sight, lines to multiple target areas. The distance was extreme, over 3,000 meters, but well within her capabilities using the specialized rifle system she carried. Elena's weapon was not standard military issue. The rifle was custom-built by master gunsmiths and incorporated technology that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. The barrel was crafted from materials originally developed for space applications. The scope used advanced computer assistance to calculate bullet trajectory, wind compensation, and target movement in real time. She quickly assessed the tactical situation below. The SEAL team was trapped in a stone compound, surrounded by enemy fighters positioned in multiple locations throughout the village and surrounding hills. Enemy strength appeared to be at least 50 fighters, possibly more. The Americans were outnumbered and running out of ammunition. Elena began her calculations. At this distance, even the slightest error would result in a missed shot. Environmental conditions had to be measured precisely: wind speed and direction at multiple elevations, air temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, and even the rotation of the Earth had to be factored into her firing solution. Her first target was obvious: a machine gun position that was preventing the SEALs from escaping through the compound's main entrance. The gunner was partially concealed behind sandbags with only his head and shoulders visible. At 3,000 meters, this target was smaller than a postage stamp when viewed through her scope. Elena controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate through techniques learned over years of specialized training. Her finger found the trigger, applying just enough pressure to take up the slack without firing. She would wait for the perfect moment when all variables aligned. The first shot broke the morning silence with a sound like thunder echoing off the mountain walls. The .338 Lapua Magnum round traveled at over 2,800 feet per second, taking nearly 4 seconds to reach its target across the vast distance. The machine gunner dropped instantly, his weapon falling silent. Elena was already acquiring her second target before the first round found its mark. Another machine gun position, this one located on a rooftop approximately 200 meters to the left of the first. The gunner had noticed his companion's sudden death and was searching the surrounding hills for the source of the shot. The second shot followed 10 seconds after the first. Another direct hit. The psychological effect on the remaining enemy fighters was immediate and devastating. Snipers were feared above all other threats in this type of warfare, especially ones who could kill accurately at impossible distances. Down. In the compound, Morrison and his team heard the distinctive crack of high-powered rifle fire. followed immediately by the cessation of machine gun fire that had been pinning them down. Someone was engaging enemy positions from an unknown location, and their marksmanship was extraordinary. "Did anyone call for sniper support?" Morrison asked through his radio. None of his team members had requested additional assets, and no sniper. Teams were supposed to be operating in their area of operations. Elena continued her methodical elimination of enemy positions. Her third target was a rocket-propelled grenade operator who was preparing to fire into the compound where the SEALs were trapped. The shot required leading the target as he moved between covered positions, a calculation that involved predicting human behavior and timing the bullet's flight path to intersect with his movement. The round struck the RPG operator's center mass, just as he raised his weapon to fire. The explosion of his unused rocket added to the chaos and confusion spreading through enemy ranks. Fighters began abandoning their positions, unsure where the deadly accurate fire was coming from. Elena's fourth and fifth shots eliminated two more key positions within 15 seconds of each other. Her rate of accurate fire at extreme range was unprecedented. Most snipers would require several minutes to properly set up and execute shots at this distance. Elena was engaging multiple targets with the speed and precision of someone shooting at a standard rifle range. The remaining enemy fighters began withdrawing from their positions around the compound. The psychological effect of losing key personnel to an invisible sniper was breaking their will to fight. Some fighters were fleeing entirely, abandoning their weapons and running toward the hills where they hoped to find safety. Morrison realized this was their opportunity to escape. "Move now," he shouted to his team. "Whatever's happening, someone just gave us a window. We need to reach the extraction point while we have covering fire." Martinez helped Walsh to his feet. The wounded SEAL was losing blood but remained functional. They would need to move quickly to take advantage of the confusion Elena's intervention had created among enemy forces. Elena watched the SEALs begin their movement through her scope. She identified their likely route toward the extraction point and began eliminating any enemy positions that could threaten their escape. Her shots became even more precise and rapid as she provided covering fire for their movement. A group of enemy fighters attempted to set up an ambush along the SEALs' escape route. Elena's 6th, 7th, and 8th shots eliminated the threat before the Americans even realized the danger existed. She was essentially conducting a battle from 3 miles away, using her rifle to shape the tactical situation in real time. The SEAL team moved through the village streets with Elena providing overwatch protection they didn't even know they had. Every potential threat was eliminated before it could engage them. Enemy fighters who tried to pursue found themselves under accurate fire from an impossible distance. Elena's ammunition supply was not unlimited. She carried 30 rounds of match-grade ammunition, each round costing more than most people earned in a day. Every shot had to count, and so far, none had been wasted. She was down to 22 rounds and would need to make them last until the SEALs reached safety. The extraction point was still over a mile away through difficult terrain. Enemy reinforcements were arriving in vehicles along the mountain roads, just as Base Command had warned. Elena would need to delay or eliminate these new threats to give the SEAL team time to reach their helicopter landing zone. Her 9th shot disabled the engine block of a truck carrying 8 enemy fighters. The vehicle coasted to a stop, stranding the reinforcements far from the battle area. Her 10th shot eliminated the driver of a second vehicle, causing it to crash into a roadside ditch. Elena was demonstrating skills that existed at the very edge of human capability. Her ability to engage multiple targets accurately at extreme range while accounting for constantly changing variables was unprecedented in military history. She was single-handedly changing the outcome of a battle from a position that most people couldn't even reach. The SEALs continued their movement toward extraction, unaware that their guardian angel was positioned on a mountain peak that touched the clouds themselves. Morrison's team had covered half the distance to their extraction point when they encountered their most serious obstacle yet. A force of approximately 20 enemy fighters had established a roadblock across their path, complete with heavy machine guns and improvised explosive devices. The position was perfectly placed to prevent any escape toward the helicopter landing zone. Elena observed the developing situation through her scope. The enemy had chosen their blocking position well. It offered excellent cover and multiple firing angles while forcing anyone trying to pass through a narrow kill zone. For the trapped SEALs, this roadblock represented almost certain death. At 3,000 meters distance, Elena faced her most challenging shots yet. The targets were partially concealed behind vehicles and stone barriers. Wind conditions had changed as the morning progressed, requiring constant recalculation of her firing solutions. Most critically, she needed to eliminate threats quickly enough to prevent the enemy from detecting her position and calling in counter-sniper teams. Her 11th shot targeted the heavy machine gun that dominated the roadblock center. The gunner was protected by steel plates welded to his vehicle, with only a small portion of his head visible through the sight opening. Elena's bullet found the narrow gap with surgical precision, and the machine gun fell silent. The psychological effect was immediate. The remaining fighters realized they were facing a sniper of extraordinary skill operating at an impossible range. Some began abandoning their positions, but their leader managed to maintain discipline by threatening deserters with execution. Elena's 12th shot eliminated the roadblock commander, a bearded man wearing a distinctive white turban who had been rallying his fighters. His death caused immediate chaos as fighters argued over who should assume command. The organization of their defensive position began to collapse. Morrison's team used the confusion to advance toward the roadblock under Elena's covering fire. Her 13th and 14th shots eliminated 2 fighters who had positioned themselves to ambush the SEALs from the flanks. The remaining enemy fighters were now focused more on finding cover from the invisible sniper than on maintaining their blocking position. Walsh, despite his shoulder wound, provided crucial intelligence about enemy movements to his team. His training as a designated marksman allowed him to identify threat priorities and suggest tactical approaches. 2 fighters with RPGs behind the blue truck, he reported. They're trying to get angle shots on our approach route. Elena had already identified the same targets. Her 15th shot struck the first RPG operator before he could fire, and her 16th eliminated his companion 2 seconds later. The precision and timing of her shots were becoming almost supernatural in their accuracy. The roadblock was rapidly losing its effectiveness as a tactical position. More than half the enemy fighters had been eliminated or had fled their positions. Those remaining were pinned down by fear of the mysterious sniper, who seemed capable of hitting any target regardless of cover or concealment. Morrison made the tactical decision to assault the weakened position directly, rather than attempting to find an alternate route. Time was critical. Enemy reinforcements were still arriving in the area, and their helicopter extraction was scheduled to arrive at the landing zone in just 15 minutes. All units were going through, Morrison commanded. "Move fast and stay low. Someone up there is clearing the path for us." Elena watched the SEAL team begin their final assault on the roadblock. She shifted her attention to eliminating any remaining threats that could endanger their passage. Her 17th shot took down a fighter who was attempting to flank the Americans from the right side. The enemy's morale finally broke completely. The remaining fighters abandoned their weapons and fled toward the hills, unwilling to face an opponent who could strike them down from an impossible distance with perfect accuracy. The roadblock dissolved as an effective fighting force. Elena's radio intercepted communications from enemy commanders in the area. They were calling for immediate withdrawal of all forces, reporting that they faced a demon sniper who kills from the mountains themselves. The psychological impact of her intervention was spreading throughout the entire enemy network. Morrison's team moved through the abandoned roadblock position quickly and efficiently. They recovered additional ammunition and medical supplies from the abandoned enemy equipment, resources they would need for the remainder of their escape route. Thompson, who had managed to escape from his compromised overwatch position, rejoined the team at the roadblock. He immediately began working to re-establish communications with their base command and the incoming extraction helicopter. "Phoenix Base, this is Razor Squad," Thompson reported. "We have broken through enemy positions and are proceeding to checkpoint Alpha. Unknown friendly sniper has provided exceptional covering fire. Request identification of supporting units in our area." The response from base command was puzzling. "Razor Squad, we show no sniper teams or supporting units in your operational area. Are you certain about friendly fire support?" Elena monitored their communications while continuing to provide overwatch for the SEAL team's movement. Her mission parameters prohibited her from revealing her presence to conventional military units. Ghost Protocol operators worked in complete secrecy, their existence known only to the highest levels of command. The final stretch to the helicopter landing zone required crossing 2 miles of mountainous terrain with limited cover. Elena repositioned herself to maintain visual contact with the SEAL team while scanning for additional threats. Her current ammunition count was down to 14 rounds, enough for critical threats, but requiring careful target selection. Enemy forces in the area had received word about the Demon Sniper and were showing extreme reluctance to engage American forces. Several groups that had been moving to intercept the SEALs had turned back after receiving reports about the impossible accuracy of the mysterious marksman. Elena's 18th shot eliminated a lone sniper who had positioned himself along the SEALs' route toward the landing zone. The enemy marksman had excellent camouflage and positioning, but Elena's superior optics and experience allowed her to detect his presence before he could engage the Americans. The helicopter extraction was now just 8 minutes away. Elena could hear the distant sound of rotor blades echoing off the mountain walls as the aircraft approached the designated landing zone. The SEALs were going to make it to safety, thanks to her intervention. Morrison's team reached the final ridgeline before the landing zone when they encountered their last obstacle. A small group of enemy fighters had managed to reach the area ahead of them and were setting up positions to ambush the extraction helicopter. The aircraft would be vulnerable during landing and takeoff, making it an attractive target for enemy forces. Elena immediately began engaging the new threats. Her 19th and 20th shots eliminated 2 fighters who were preparing rocket-propelled grenades to use against the helicopter. Her 21st shot disabled a heavy machine gun position that could have devastated the aircraft during its approach. The helicopter pilot, callsign Dustoff 7, reported visual contact with the landing zone. Razor Squad, this is your extraction. I see signal smoke and am beginning approach. Be advised, there appears to be enemy activity in the surrounding area. Elena's final 3 shots eliminated the remaining threats around the landing zone. Her 24th round found its mark just as the helicopter touched down, clearing the way for a safe extraction of the SEAL team. Morrison and his team boarded the aircraft quickly and efficiently. Walsh received immediate medical attention from the helicopter's medic, while the other team members provided security during takeoff. As the aircraft lifted off and banked away from the mountains, Morrison looked back at the terrain where someone had saved their lives from an impossible distance. Back at Forward Operating Base Phoenix, the successful extraction of Razor Squad created more questions than answers. Morrison and his team underwent thorough debriefing sessions with intelligence officers who struggled to understand how they had survived an overwhelming enemy ambush with only 1 minor casualty. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the base commander, personally conducted Morrison's debriefing. Her experience with special operations spanned 2 decades, but she had never heard a report quite like this one. Lieutenant Commander, you're absolutely certain about this sniper support? Colonel Mitchell asked, studying the tactical maps spread across her desk. 24 confirmed enemy kills from an estimated range of 3,000 meters, all within a 30-minute time frame. Morrison nodded confidently. Ma'am, I've never seen marksmanship like that in 15 years of special operations. Whoever was up there saved our lives. The precision and timing were impossible by normal standards. Colonel Mitchell's intelligence staff had already begun investigating the mysterious sniper. Satellite imagery from the time period showed no evidence of American forces positioned in the mountain areas where the shots must have originated. Drone reconnaissance of the suspected firing positions found only empty terrain with no signs of recent occupation. Meanwhile, Elena Vasquez had already begun her extraction from the area. Ghost Protocol operators worked with resources and transportation methods that remained classified at the highest levels. Her extraction involved techniques that left no trace of her presence and no evidence that American forces had ever been in the area. The mystery deepened when intelligence analysts studied enemy communications intercepts from the battle. Taliban fighters were reporting encounters with a ghost who kills from the sky and a demon marksman who sees through mountains. The psychological impact of Elena's intervention was spreading throughout the entire terrorist network. Ahmad Nazir, the high-value target who had escaped during the ambush, was reportedly furious about the failed operation. His carefully planned trap had been destroyed by a single sniper whose existence seemed impossible. Intelligence reports suggested he was demanding answers from his commanders about American capabilities they had never encountered before. Dr. James Harrison, the base's senior intelligence analyst, presented his findings to Colonel Mitchell 3 days after the extraction. His report was both fascinating and troubling. "Ma'am, based on ballistic analysis and enemy casualty reports, we're looking at shooting performance that exceeds anything in military records," Dr. Harrison explained. "The accuracy, range, and rate of fire suggest capabilities beyond current known special operations parameters." Colonel Mitchell studied the classified files on her computer screen. Her security clearance allowed access to information about America's most secret military programs, but she found no reference to any sniper assets in the area during Razor Squad's mission. The investigation took an interesting turn when analysts discovered that enemy losses in the region had been steadily increasing over the previous 6 months. Taliban and al-Qaeda leaders had been eliminated under mysterious circumstances, always by long-range precision fire from impossible distances. The pattern suggested a single operator working alone over an extended period. Morrison's team, meanwhile, was dealing with their own questions about the mysterious guardian angel who had saved their lives. Walsh, recovering from his shoulder wound, spent hours studying ballistics tables and range calculations, trying to understand how anyone could achieve such accuracy at extreme distances. "The mathematics don't work," Walsh explained to his teammates. "Even with the best equipment available, environmental factors at that range should make consistent accuracy impossible. Wind, temperature, humidity, air pressure. There are too many variables to calculate perfectly." Martinez, the team medic, had his own theory. Maybe it wasn't one person. Could have been a whole sniper team with spotters and advanced computer assistance. That might explain the rapid target engagement. Thompson disagreed. "I monitored all coalition frequencies during the engagement. There were no communications suggesting multiple personnel. Plus, the shooting pattern was too consistent for multiple operators. This was one person with skills we've never seen before." The mystery attracted attention at the Pentagon, where senior officials began questioning whether an unknown American asset had been operating without proper authorization. The potential for friendly fire incidents or diplomatic complications made unauthorized operations extremely dangerous. General Robert Hayes, Director of Special Operations Command, personally reviewed the Razor Squad incident report. His 30-year career included oversight of America's most classified military programs, but he found no records of any sniper assets capable of the performance described in Morrison's report. Elena Vasquez, meanwhile, had returned to her base of operations, a facility so classified that its location was known only to 12 people in the entire government. Ghost Protocol headquarters existed in a remote location where the world's most exceptional warriors trained and operated under conditions of absolute secrecy. Her mission commander, a man known only as Control, debriefed her about the Razor Squad intervention. Ghost Protocol operators were forbidden from revealing their presence to conventional military units, but saving American lives took priority over operational security. "Your assistance to the SEAL team has created complications," Control explained during Elena's debriefing. "Intelligence agencies are investigating the incident and your performance exceeded parameters they consider possible." Elena understood the implications. Ghost Protocol's effectiveness depended on remaining completely unknown to America's enemies and largely unknown to America's conventional military forces. Her intervention had been necessary to save lives, but it had also exposed capabilities that were supposed to remain secret. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Ghost Protocol's intelligence assets began creating false evidence suggesting that the mysterious sniper had been a foreign national, possibly a former military sniper working as a mercenary for coalition forces. The story would explain the exceptional marksmanship while deflecting investigation away from American special programs. Dr. Harrison's final report to Colonel Mitchell concluded that the mysterious sniper was most likely a contract asset working with coalition special operations under deep cover. The explanation satisfied most investigators and allowed the incident to be classified at levels that prevented further inquiry. Morrison and his team never learned the truth about their guardian angel. They returned to active duty with a story they would tell for the rest of their careers. How an unknown marksman with impossible skills had saved their lives from 3 miles away in the mountains of Afghanistan. Elena Vasquez returned to her solitary operations in some of the world's most dangerous places. Her identity would remain secret, her achievements unrecognized by the public, and her existence known only to the few individuals who directed America's most classified military operations. She was a ghost who saved lives from impossible distances, a guardian angel who existed in the shadows. 6 months after the rescue of Razor Squad, the incident had become legend within special operations communities worldwide. Stories of the mysterious sniper spread through military bases, training facilities, and veteran gatherings. Each telling added new details, and the truth became mixed with myth until it was difficult to separate fact from fiction. Morrison had been promoted to commander and assigned to train the next generation of Navy SEALs at the Naval Special Warfare Command. In Coronado, California, he often used the Afghanistan incident as a case study in tactical adaptation and the importance of never giving up hope, even in impossible situations. Sometimes help comes from places you never expect, he would tell his students during advanced tactical courses. That day in Afghanistan, someone we never saw and never met saved 8 American lives from a distance that shouldn't have been possible. It taught me that we're never truly alone out there. The students always asked the same questions. Who was the sniper? What unit did they belong to? How did they achieve such impossible accuracy? Morrison's honest answer was always the same. He didn't know, and probably never would. Walsh had recovered completely from his shoulder wound and returned to active duty with increased determination to improve his own marksmanship skills. He spent countless hours on rifle ranges, studying ballistics, and pushing the boundaries of long-range shooting. His goal was to someday achieve even a fraction of the skill level demonstrated by their mysterious savior. At the FBI's Quantico training facility, Walsh worked with some of America's best civilian and military marksmen. He shared his story with instructors who had decades of experience in precision shooting. Their universal response was disbelief, followed by careful analysis of the tactical situation. The environmental factors alone should have made those shots impossible, explained Master Gunnery Sergeant Patricia Lopez, the Marine Corps' chief marksmanship instructor. At 3,000 meters, you're dealing with bullet flight times of over 4 seconds. Wind conditions change multiple times during that flight path, and even the Earth's rotation affects trajectory. But Walsh had witnessed the results firsthand. 24 enemy fighters eliminated with 24 shots over a 30-minute period. No misses, no wasted ammunition, no margin for error. It was performance that existed beyond the known boundaries of human capability. Martinez had developed his own theory about their guardian angel. As a combat medic, he understood the psychological aspects of warfare as well as the physical challenges. He believed their sniper was someone who had experienced similar desperate situations and understood exactly what was at stake. Whoever it was understood what we were going through, Martinez explained to his wife during one of his rare moments of opening up about combat experiences. They knew we were fathers and husbands and sons. They knew we deserved to come home. That's what gave them the strength to make impossible shots. Thompson continued serving as a communications specialist, but the Afghanistan experience had changed his perspective on military technology and human capability. He began studying reports of exceptional military performances throughout history, looking for patterns that might explain what they had witnessed. His research led him into classified archives containing records of unusual military incidents, dating back to World War II. Stories of lone snipers achieving impossible results, of individuals performing feats that defied explanation, of heroes whose identities remained forever secret. Meanwhile, Elena Vasquez continued her solitary missions in various global hotspots. Her existence remained completely unknown to the UA. Conventional military forces she sometimes protected from impossible distances. She was a guardian angel who operated in absolute secrecy, saving lives without recognition or acknowledgement. Her latest mission had taken her to the mountains of Syria, where she tracked terrorist leaders who were planning attacks on coalition bases. Her methods remained unchanged: patient observation, precise calculation, and elimination of threats before they could harm American personnel. The Ghost Protocol program had expanded since the Afghanistan incident. Senior military leadership recognized the value of having operators who could achieve results impossible through conventional means. Elena's success had proven that exceptional individuals could accomplish missions that entire units might fail to complete. Control briefed Elena on her next assignment during a rare return to headquarters. The facility remained so classified that it appeared on no maps and was known to no foreign intelligence agencies. Here, America's most exceptional warriors trained in methods that pushed the boundaries of human capability. "There's a SEAL team operating in Somalia that may need your assistance," Control explained. "Intelligence suggests they're walking into a situation similar to what happened in Afghanistan. We want you positioned to provide support if necessary." Elena studied the mission briefings with professional interest. Another trap, another group of America's finest warriors potentially facing overwhelming odds in hostile territory. She would be ready to provide the same impossible assistance she had given Morrison's team. The cycle would continue: elite American forces operating in dangerous locations, sometimes facing situations beyond their ability to handle alone. When those desperate moments arose, when distress signals crackled across radio frequencies in remote corners of the world, Elena would be listening. She represented a capability that officially didn't exist, achieving results that were theoretically impossible, saving lives from distances that defied belief. To the enemies of America, she was a ghost story, a supernatural threat that struck without warning and vanished without trace. To the American warriors she protected, she was something even more powerful: proof that someone was always watching, always ready to answer when heroes called for help. Her existence provided psychological comfort to special operations personnel who faced impossible odds in defense of their country. The story of the distress signal that shook the air above Afghanistan had become part of military folklore. It was told in training facilities and veteran gatherings around the world. It reminded warriors that they were never truly alone, that somewhere in the shadows, extraordinary individuals stood ready to provide impossible assistance when duty demanded it. Morrison's team returned to their families, forever changed by their experience with forces beyond normal understanding. They had witnessed capabilities that existed at the very edge of human potential, and they knew that somewhere in the world's most dangerous places, guardian angels with rifles continued their silent watch. Elena Vasquez remained what she had always been: a ghost in the machine of America's defense capabilities, a legend that protected other legends, a sniper whose impossible skills ensured that America's heroes could return home to the families who waited for them. Her story would never be fully told. Her identity would never be revealed, but her legacy would live forever in the lives she saved from distances that touched the sky itself.